It is now time to start going through all the different tribes of the Great Migration period and to estimate their part in the fall of the Western Roman Empire. We know that many different Germanic tribes played some part in the fall of the Western Roman Empire, and the Vandals were probably the fiercest, the most ruthless, and also the most cunning of them all. This Germanic tribe would play a crucial role in the fall of the Western Roman Empire by conquering its most prosperous province and by managing to establish themselves as the rulers in northern Africa. But how on earth could the Vandals achieve such feats? Well, friends of late Roman history, let's find out. The Vandals were a Germanic people who settled the area between the lower Oder and Vistula rivers in a region called Silesia. This area is located in the south of modern-day Poland. They lived in Silesia together with the tribe of the Lugi, which were close kinsmen who were later completely assimilated into the Vandal culture. Where the Vandals originally came from is still not entirely proven and thus sometimes debated, but it is thought that they migrated to Silesia from Scandinavia in the 2nd century BC. After arriving there in several migration waves from 400 to 120 BC, they continued living in that region for hundreds of years until they were pushed into Pannonia, possibly by the Goths, during the crisis of the 3rd century, also playing a crucial role in that tumultuous time when the Roman Empire almost fell. Together with the Sarmatians, they raided deep into the territory of Pannonia, but during those days the Roman Empire was ruled by capable emperors, and so the Emperor Probus defeated them and the Burgundians in 278 AD decisively. Many of them were made foederati to the empire, some of which were sent to Britain for the defense of the northwestern borders of the Imperium Romanum. Some 50 years later, the Emperor Constantine granted the Vandals lands to settle to the northeast of the province of Pannonia, on the other side of the Danube River, where they were content for 60 years. But then the Huns came. In the late 4th century AD, a cascade of events was set into motion by the westward expanding Huns, an aggressive tribe that initially lived in the Asian steppes around the Caspian Sea. This westward expansion of the Huns set into motion the Great Migrations, where many Germanic tribes fled west and southward from these aggressive hordes. We know that in 401 and 402 AD already, the Vandals crossed into the province of Raetia, where they attacked some cities. But in those days, the Western Roman Empire was still strong, and it is an irony of history that the greatest defender of Rome in those days was a half-Vandal himself, namely the legendary Flavius Stilicho. Upon hearing the news that the Vandals were plundering parts of Raetia, Stilicho marched north from Italy into Raetia and fought against them. But immediately the Visigoths under Alaric sensed that Italy was now undefended, and thus Alaric invaded Italy in 402, forcing Stilicho to return to Italy for its defense. Now the Vandals, meanwhile, had probably been driven back by Stilicho from Raetia, but in retaliation they banded together with the Goths, the Alans and the Suevi under leadership of the feared king of the Gothic tribes, Radagaisus. But Stilicho enlisted whatever fighters he could, even enrolling slaves and gladiators into the Western Roman army, and incredibly he managed to defeat Radagaisus in 405. In 406, Radagaisus invaded Italy a second time, where he was now utterly defeated and executed by Stilicho. 12,000 of his warriors were enrolled into the Western army, among them probably many Vandals. So thus now we had Vandals fighting for the empire, led by a half-Vandal, and Vandals fighting against the empire. We thus see how incredibly chaotic the situation was in those days. But many Vandals managed to escape over the Alps after they had been defeated by Stilicho, probably wreaking havoc in the now undefended province of Raetia. At some point in late 406, the Vandals, together with the Alans and the Suevi, marched westward towards the Rhine. Unfortunately, Stilicho had previously moved away troops from the Rhine frontier for the defense of Italy, and thus there were only Franks left to defend the Rhine frontier, who in those days were loyal foederati to the Western Roman Empire. In late 406 or early 407 AD then, the Vandals attacked the Franks, and there was long and intense fighting. According to Gregory of Tours, 20,000 Vandals, including their king, died against the Franks. But then at some point more Germanic tribes joined the Vandals, and especially with the help of the Alans, they managed to defeat the Franks, allowing them to cross into Gallia in early 407 AD, together with other Germanic tribes such as the Suevi and the Burgundians. They sacked many cities in Gaul and devastated the province terribly. And please like this video and subscribe so that you won't miss any future videos on the fascinating era of the late Roman Empire. And please consider supporting our work on Patreon or via YouTube membership, because the long-term sustainability of this channel really depends on your support. Seriously, this channel would not work without our Patreons and YouTube members, and I want to thank each and everyone that is supporting this channel in any form. Gratias tibiago, amici. The Vandals then settled in the region of southern Hispania after around 410 AD, where they were content for quite a few years. That region still bears the name of Andalusia, which is possibly derived from Vandalusia, land of the Vandals. But then something happened, which should be the downfall of the Western Roman Empire. Gaiseric became king of the Vandals in 428 AD, and this person would be, together with Attila the Hun, the most cunning and brutal enemy of Rome, who would play a pivotal role in the destruction of the Western Roman Empire. Gaiseric took the decision to cross over into Africa immediately after his reign began. However, the Vandals, like many other Germanic tribes, did not know how to build ships. The art of shipbuilding was in fact kept secret from the barbarians for the longest possible time, and that is also the reason why the Goths, for example, were not able to sail to the Levant or Egypt and also had to settle in the Western Roman Empire, as did many other Germanic tribes. And it seems that the local Romans in Hispania taught the Vandals at some point how to build ships. We can imagine that this certainly wasn't a voluntary decision. In fact, the Vandals quite likely terrorized many Roman cities, and the Roman inhabitants of these cities quite likely just wanted these ruthless barbarians to be gone. So it was the local Hispano-Romans themselves who taught the Vandals how to build ships, so that they then could cross over the Strait of Gibraltar into Africa in 429. And then in the course of 10 years, they managed to conquer the whole Western Roman province of Africa. How exactly could they do all these things? Their entire population is estimated to have been 200,000, among them many women and children, so their army could not have amounted to more than 50,000 men. But millions of Romans were living in Hispania and Africa. Well, the answer to this is that the Romans were, as always, busy fighting themselves. It was usurper against counter-usurper, it was emperor against usurper, it was emperor against magister militum, and so on and so forth. There was no concerted and united Roman effort against these tribes, and the Vandal kings knew this. Gaiseric used that chaos to his advantage. For instance, exactly in those days when the Vandals conquered Africa, the Western Roman Empire had 3 different high-ranking generals, who were, of course, how else could it be, fighting against each other. These were Flavius Felix, Flavius Aetius, and Bonifatius. But only Aetius would survive this conflict, and it was exactly because, again, in the most crucial time the Romans were engaged in civil war, that the Vandals were able to conquer Africa. And here again the Vandals had help. Local Berber tribes saw their chance come to regain freedom from the Romans, so therefore many Berber tribes joined the Vandals and helped them actively, even joining their army. But the local Roman population, even though being far larger in number, mostly consisted of civilians and not of a trained army. Yet even so, the Vandals often met stiff resistance, and many of them died in that 10-year African conquest. For instance, the city of Hippo Regius, where Augustine of Hippo lived, was taken only after 14 months of bitter fighting. Despite a truce with the Romans under Valentinian III, Gaiseric then captured Carthage in 439. Thus, the kingdom of the Vandals had been established in Africa. And for all those who think that this was a peaceful settlement, I talked extensively about the atrocities that the Vandals and other Germanic tribes committed in these conquests in this video here. With the loss of Africa, a crushing blow was dealt to the Western Roman Empire, because that was a rich province, so an incredible amount of tax revenue was lost, and also the main source of grain shipments to the city of Rome was no more. Thus, the population of the city of Rome started to contract after Africa was conquered by the Vandals. In 440, the Eastern Roman Empire sent help in order to recapture Africa, but exactly then, the Huns started invading the Eastern Roman Empire. It is very likely that Gaiseric had sent emissaries to the Huns and told them that the Romans had withdrawn lots of troops from the east and that they would be an easy target. And indeed, that is exactly what happened. The Huns attacked and the Eastern Romans had to withdraw their fleet again, effectively leaving the Western Romans to fight on their own. After the murders of Aetius and Valentinian III, the Western Roman Empire was plunged into even more chaos, and of course, all barbarian tribes immediately used this situation to their advantage, greatly expanding their dominions. But the Vandals, of course, again stole the show, topping everything with their cunning, brutality, and ruthlessness. Gaiseric seized the opportunity and sacked Rome in 455, but this sack was much more thorough than the Visigothic sack of 410. For 2 weeks did the Vandals sack the glorious city, and after they were finished with it, the glory of Rome was much diminished. In 460 then, the heroic Emperor Maiorianus tried to reconquer Africa from the Vandals for the Western Roman Empire, but his fleet was burned while it was anchoring at Portus Ilicitanus near Carthago Nova, quite possibly by traitors who were paid off by the Vandals, who after the sack of Rome had many riches at their disposal. In 468 then, another tried to destroy the Vandal kingdom, this time by the Western Roman Emperor Anthemius and the Eastern Emperor Leo I, was conducted, and the same way as 8 years before, the cunning of Gaiseric would again be the downfall of the Romans. Half of the fleet was destroyed in a Vandal surprise attack at the Battle of Cape Bon, and thus the Vandal kingdom was for a long time secured. I talked about the disastrous Battle of Cape Bon in this video here. The Vandal kingdom reached its greatest extent shortly after the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 477, and the extremely ruthless but extremely intelligent King Gaiseric had played a crucial role in the downfall of the Western Roman Empire and had transformed his insignificant Germanic tribe into a strong naval power that would incite fear in the hearts of the Romans. Gaiseric died in 477 at the incredible age of 88 years, having been king of the Vandals for 50 years. I think that without Gaiseric, the Western Roman Empire might have survived far longer, since Africa would have probably not been conquered. We will talk about such a scenario in another video. After Gaiseric's death, the Vandal kingdom continued to exist for 57 more years, until one genius Roman general would accomplish what Maiorian, Anthemius and Leo could not, namely to reconquer the Vandal kingdom for the Roman Empire. And in only 1 year, with a quite small force of only 17,000 men, did Belisarius defeat the Vandals, and thus after around 100 years, the kingdom of the Vandals was no more. I talked about these events in this video here. In 534 AD then, the Vandal kingdom was reincorporated into the Eastern Roman Empire, as the Western Roman Empire did not exist anymore by that time. Thus do the traces of the Vandals also disappear, and they likely mingled with the local Roman population, so that over 150 years later, when the Muslim Caliphate conquered the region, there probably was no distinguishable trace anymore of the Vandal culture. They were the fiercest enemies of Rome together with the Huns, and as quickly as they appeared on the world stage, as quickly they disappeared again. But they will always be remembered as some of the fiercest and most cunning enemies of Rome, and the word vandalism will always remind us of their ruthless nature. And I would like to give a special thanks to the team behind the excellent mod for Rome Total War Attila called Age of Justinian AD 555, which enables these excellent animations of large unit movements and battles. You can download the mod on Steam, and I put the link into the video description. And a big thanks also to our awesome Patreon Tuki who recorded these in-game animations of the mod. And if you are interested in learning more about the ruthlessness and brutality of the Germanic invaders, you can watch this video here in the upper right corner. But if you are more interested in how the Germanic tribes overran Gaul and Spain, you can watch the other video in the lower right corner. I say thanks again to all friends of Roman history, gratias tibiago and bene valete.